Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Chill Sunday Staxel stream. How's everybody doing today? I see M and Cray are already here. Cray, welcome. How are you doing? M, how is your Sunday going? I hope you're both well. I'm doing pretty okay. Looking forward to having some good conversations. Looking forward to an awesome stream where we work more on Base Cat ship, where we finish building the cart, and we talk about the cost of maintaining systems. Hello and welcome, Jalix. How are you today? Also, while you all answer, I am going to throw this up on Twitter quick. Twitter. There we go. And it's up on Twitter. Okay. Probably since last week, Gray. Just gonna give people a few minutes to make their way in. Listen to this chill, relaxing music. Questioning his authority before I say hi. Yes, Staxel, thank you for letting me know the controller is available. Yeah, that is truly anarchist of you. And as we all know here at Anarchist Tarot, we disavow anything related to anarchism. So, Cray, you're banished. What? Did I miss something? Also, that I hate when this goes through the period of no music. Because that chill music just, like, brings it all together. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny, Gray. The controller is available romantically. I don't know, I'm not into controllers. It's also available for friendship and total devotion to Base Cat. Oh, the no was you being yeeted into the shadow realm. Maybe it wasn't talking to you. Y'all are wonderful. Welcome, Duke. How are you this lovely Sunday? Huzzah, you have clean towels. Congratulations. Clean towels are important. I'll give it like one more minute and then we can make our way in. Again, we're going to be working on the base ship today. We're going to be finishing up the cart, which is going to have us going to the new portal that we just opened. And I want to talk about the cost of maintaining systems. Well, as usual, Duke, the conversations on the Discord are always very stimulating. That's why this stream was a few minutes late to start as well. So Alright, I think we can get in now. Got a few people here. And everyone else will make their way in. I watched about half of it, and then while I was setting up the stream. So I want to watch the other half before I comment. Whee! It's loading. This is what life looks like when you first wake up. It's just a blocky, grainy mess. There we go. Hey, base cat. Sorry. It is not COVID, I promise. It's like my go-to response every time I sneeze now. Has anyone else had that issue also? Where if like you have a moment of like an allergy or something? Thank you. They say that if you have that blocky, grainy mess for too long, you might have vision problems. True. You might want to get your eyes examined at that point. Highly suggested. Also, hey, Bo. Bo the turtle right here. That's fair. Hello, David. Welcome. How are you this lovely Sunday? Let's teleport. Enjoy your sewing, Em. Oh, this is new. Oh, okay, I didn't mean to teleport back. That sounds absolutely lovely. It is not a sewer. Uh-oh, my inventory is full. Get rid of that. Surf cotton. Okay. Oh, which shot did you get, David? Also, that is exciting. Pfizer? Okay. I've heard that people generally get slightly less reactions with Pfizer than Moderna. But they're more or less on par with each other. And this past week, a big part of why I didn't have videos coming out really is because I was recovering from getting the shot last week. Side effects weren't too bad. All things considered. It was just a lot of fatigue. Yeah, that's how I was after the first day. No, the first day was fine. It was the second day where it kicked in and my body just was aching. And, like, all I wanted to do was sleep for, like, 14 hours. Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you get it better than I did, honestly. Oh yeah, I'm feeling much better. I'm honestly just glad that that's over. And I'm looking forward to when the second one is done with. But again, all those side effects are completely worth it not to have to deal with that, like, anxiety and stress about possibly getting COVID. I mean, not that we're, like, completely out of the, you know, the woods, as it were. Even if we're vaccinated, but it's still a level of, a peace of mind, you know? A level of peace of mind. The second one is supposedly worse. Jalix. Most people get sicker after the second one. Stocked up your pantry with chicken soup, grapefruit juice, just in case. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, most people get, like, the aches the first time around, that from the people that I've talked to. after the second one, people were getting flu-like symptoms. Which means that it's working. It means that you already have some of the antibodies and it's responding. Like, you're creating the, you know, tools to potentially fight off versions of COVID. Oscar, what are you doing on my property? Get off my property. I am hoping beyond hope, Dukes, that things don't mutate and things stay within the range of the vaccine. Because I feel you. Oscar is, someone we don't like. So this house here is Oscar's, David, since you asked. Mal would have words for Oscar. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people who would have had words for Oscar. Underneath Oscar's house, which is blocked in by a wall of dirt, because we found this, which was a secret dungeon that was built under his house. Also, Oscar tried to make us an honorary cop because he was the former head of police of this area before the police were defunded. This was his hat. This was his badge. I keep them with the other symbols of the old society. He's the secret police. He talks about, like, wanting to... The rubbish here's getting out of hand. Like, the comments he makes. There's actually one line where he talks about how you better clean up the streets and clean up after yourself because otherwise you might disappear. Like, it's really creepy. He's not gonna say it right now, but yeah. Might as well feed the chickens. We haven't quite reached it yet, Cray. We're working on it. By the power of Base Cat. I mean, part of it started that way, but, you know, getting better. They're having a animal convention right here. Why are you all leaving Ida out? If you didn't give them pets, sometime for enough days, they get upset with you. When he's alone, Oscar's reading Jordan Peterson's book. That's why he's whiny incel chat rooms. That could very well be it. Okay, now what else did we need for the cart? Because I was still working on that. What was it called again? Wagon. Okay. There we go. We had done the 6 fine lumber. We made that. We did the basic frame. Wagon, right, I had to combine 2 silk with 8 red petal and 8 green leaf. I did not hear the reason why Jordan Peterson is angry at Marvel. What did Marvel do to anger Jordan Peterson? I am genuinely curious. Okay, next up. Combined. They presented his ideas through the Red Skull. Early Red Skull, not late Red Skull. I still feel like that was a really weird choice of Marvel, by the way, to do what they did with the Red Skull. Wait, Red Skull's back in the Marvel Universe? Yeah, they did something funky with him in the movies. Oh, you're talking about the comics. Okay, that makes sense. My mind went straight to the MCU. That makes far more sense. Let's see. Now I need to carve 4 fine lumber, 4 nails, and varnish. So, Red Skull... So Red Skull started saying a bunch of, Jordan Peterson stuff. It's actually really funny. Okay, and... nails and varnish. Wait, what? Why did that not work? Oh, I don't have enough nails. That would do it. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Now I need to take a wagon bench, completed wagon, wagon comforts, 6 rope, and 10 star bits. Jeez. You're thinking about getting a Discord account, David? I recommend it. Discord is definitely a chill place. Well, the Discord that, let's see. We have that. True. Yeah, our Discord's really chill. It's simple enough to use, I think. Honestly, I think it's easier to use than most other forms of communication. And star bits, which I think are up there. Nope, I'm carrying them. Clothing wagon completed. Yeah, it is fundamentally just an instant messenger. Yeah, please. If you don't mind, David. Also, take aircraft. Set it up for me somewhere. Alright. Well, right here seems to make sense to me. and we're good. We have set up the We have finished Eris's quest, finally. Yes. A mini wagon plushie? Okay. Well, we've got one quest and one thing done today that we were setting out to do. Oh. Base Cat just brought me another dress? I think it's the same dress I'm wearing. Greetings, friendo. How are you this Sunday? You joined the server, but it says you don't have permission to speak. Did you just make your Discord? It might take a few minutes before it lets you, if you did. I'm doing pretty okay today, friender. Okay, let's get back to working on the ship. Yeah, it might take a few minutes. David. I think we could start working on sails now. Let's grab that. Yellow candy, purple candy. Don't need that. Purple metal. False alarm cry? That's a good false alarm, I'm assuming? Okay. Glad to hear it then. Okay, so let's grab that and make our way up to... I feel like right here? Oh, I need the rest of the pieces. Where are they? Let's see, where are the... There's the ship mast. And I need one other piece, which is not here for some reason. Oh. Oops. Hit the wrong key and ended up hitting the hotkey to switch over to my camera. This is gonna need, like, grand sales. Majora, welcome. How are you this lovely Sunday? Yep, definitely higher. Doing pretty good, chill. Not too many complaints on my end right now. Nope, that needs to be taller. I think that should be good. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. How do they do that on the other island? I see. I mean, yeah, within that framework. I hear you, Majora. The systems that we live in are not okay. But given the reality that we live in that system, I am glad to hear that you're doing pretty okay, considering that. One, two, 3, 5, 6. Nope, that's backwards. You as well, Majora. Thanks for stopping by. Always glad to have you here. Nice. Thanks, David. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Post one of these. I am curious what this looks like if I do that. Kinda don't like how that looks like it's just floating off on nothing. Unfortunately, not that I'm aware of, David. Are those sails? I think those sails are a good size. Probably do... the roles on Discord, David, are designed to, like, help you with things that you identify with. So, your pronouns, if you want to be part of certain groups or organizations on the Discord, you would join them for certain types of notifications, like if you want a notification when I stream or anything like that. And the snail and worm one is just for fun. Oh, that's just to change the color of your name. There's a right answer to everything, Duke. One, two, three, four. One's here. One, two. If it's these two were the center. Is that off center? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is off center. Huh. So if these two are center, then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we can have a second sail here. Three, four, five. One, two, three, four, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The right answer is y'all. That's true. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Two, 3, 4. Something went wrong there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bolt. 2, 3, 4, 5. Bolt. 1, 2, 3, 5. Bolt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bolt. And that's correct. Did it go wrong here? Two, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4. That looks right. Okay. This one should probably be just a little bit higher. 4, 5. sails. Three, 4, 5, 6. One, two, 3, 4, 6. Three, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I put that one on backwards. Whoops. Turn that around. There we go. And we do need a third one. I'm gonna just quickly reference other ships to just see what I'm looking at. So there should be like a tiny one in the front. Sails on ships. Let's see. We could do... Wow, there are some sail ships with like 5 or 6 sets of sails. That's intense. Oh, it would be better to chat here, David, honestly. Yeah, I don't get notifications while, So since this is already built up, I can make this one shorter. It's cool. We all gotta, you know, get in the groove somewhere. Yeah, I'm happy that you joined the Discord. It's gonna be great being able to talk. Go one more layer up. You know, I just realized that's a bad. That can't be. Right in the way of the wheel. I could put one right here. That would make sense. Okay, there's a Mortal Kombat movie. That's my legit reaction to you saying that, so no, I have not. And we'll go 1, 2. Oh, fell asleep. Wow. Like everybody bought me a gift. Oh, I don't have any of those type of streaming services, so. Hey, Carl barks. How does Wings keep getting out? That's true, and I'm glad you pointed that out. We have the two different book clubs that are available. We do a bunch of like weekly things, like watch parties and stuff. It's chill. We have activities. This is true. The fees? Fees for what? I think M meant, actually, I don't know what M meant there with fee clubs. I think, oh, we have a few clubs. Few. No, you do not have to pay to do anything on the Discord, Avid. Anyone who's in a comfortable place and feels like donating to support the channel and the videos I make, that's fine, but only if you're in a financially good place. And only if you feel like you can afford it and swing it. Like, I wouldn't want to... Yeah, fees would be a little bit counterproductive in that regard. Three, four... six... And there we go. And I could probably throw one more right here, like a smaller one. Two, three, four, five. One, two, three, four, five. Three, four, five. And I'll go one more up. One more up might be too much. Oh, we already got the 2 book clubs going. Already. Oh, that's cool, Cry. I hope you have fun. They're different times depending on when people can meet. And we're reading 2 different books. Some people were unable to make the first book club that we set up. I might do is shrink this one down. Slightly. That's true, yeah, there's descriptions at the top if you're on PC that will explain what the channels are for. It really is, David. That's why I'm glad we're reading it. Well, we've got sales. So, with the sales done, I think I am going to go use the bathroom super quick, and then we can start talking about the topic at hand for the day while I start working on some stuff in the lower decks or adding in some windows on the side, because that would be really nice. So I will be right back, and then we'll get into some conversations about politics. And we are back. You're overthrowing me again. Good. Glad to see it. Democratic decision time. Anarchy, yes or no? Hey merchants, welcome. Libertarian municipalism. That's fair. So let me see. I was debating about turning this into 2 separate decks. One, two, three, four. Because this is a really high staircase. Two, three, four, 5. That would be 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that works. Anything is an acceptable breakfast food, especially pizza. The lighting in this game needs so much work. You can have breakfast at dinner time. You can have dinner at breakfast time. You know, I'm all in favor of it all. As long as you're not going hungry, that makes me happy. There are 3 takes you come here for, Cray? What are those? Craving mac and cheese. That's fair. That's a valid craving. Omelette du fromage. I remember that phrase strictly from Dexter's Laboratory. Oh, these are the takes you come here for? Fair. I completely read that wrong. I saw 3. best food, indeed. Cheese omelets are amazing. Oh, wrong thing. There we go. So, how's everybody feeling about, talking about the cost of maintaining the system? You guess, Cray? You don't sound enthusiastic. Honestly, it feels like one of those weeks. Maybe I'll wait for... Thinking about yesterday? Oh. Yeah. Yeah. That's real. Let's do this? Yeah, we can do this. I might just wait for David to get back since, you know, give him a couple of minutes. A relevant actual justice warrior. What is an actual justice warrior? Cray, what? You don't have to, you don't have to fake it if you're not feeling it. It's been a long, emotional week. A right-wing YouTuber. That sounds like a... someone I would definitely not be watching. Cray. David's gonna come back with his mac and cheese and be like, what did I miss? feel like I should get the windows to put in here. So the cost of maintaining the system. When it comes to the way that our systems function, one of the things that we often do is dump a lot of money into figuring out who gets what, how it's supposed to be handled, how it's supposed to be distributed. Instead of just distributing things, we spend a lot of time maintaining a system that is designed to keep things in a certain order. Financially speaking, we try to maintain records of earned value, and we try to maintain things like who did what to deserve what, as opposed to just giving people the necessities of things that they need. And in doing so, we put a lot of effort into spending money and resources that would otherwise be useful at helping people on the tools to uphold these systems. And what do I mean by that? I mean the bureaucracy of things like if someone deserves food stamps, for example. The system of the police, who are supposed to preserve and maintain certain forms of property ownership. I'm talking about anything that is basically used by the system as a tool of maintaining the allocation of resources as they are. Welcome back, David. And so the question becomes, at what point is the cost of trying to come up with these actual amounts, these values that we are trying to talk about, at what point is maintaining the value system more expensive and more costly than just giving people things and giving people passes? Now, I'd argue that as anarchists and people here that we probably have a much deeper understanding of cost than just financial. But I wanted to start on the financial basis of it. At what point does funding the bureaucratic institutions in our type of system and economy become more expensive than the goals they're supposed to be protecting? And I think that's an important question that we need to be asking. I'm getting to that, David. As anarchists, we know that the cost is not just monetary, but I want to start with the monetary, because that's where people are going to start thinking about it outside of our circles. But I agree with you. It's a cost of life. It's a cost of liberty. It's a cost of freedoms in our society. It's also an inefficient use of resources. Effectively, economically speaking, if you have judges, if you have lawyers who are talking about the allocation of resources, if you have bureaucracies trying to determine who gets welfare money, who gets certain programs, if you have institutions designed to protect property in the way that we have it, instead of just feeding people, which will statistically just lower crime completely, what exactly are we doing in that type of system? Poverty, as David pointed out, is extremely expensive. And the people in power impose a heavy cost on other people to enrich themselves. I completely agree with you, David. And what it really comes down to is that in doing this, in making sure that money and resources are allocated in a very specific way, in keeping accounts and tabs on every little detail, we end up spending more money keeping hands idle hands that would otherwise be able to work in maybe more productive means, who could be producing resources, who could be taking positions from other people, and lowering the amount of hours we need to work to create enough of whatever in a society. instead of having so much of the population devoted to doing a certain type of work, we could have people being able to just have food and resources. Means testing requires sprawling bureaucracies that are often more expensive than just the actual solving of the problem. Absolutely. And this is the kind of thing that anarchists, like to point out, and that anybody I think on the left is willing to examine, that the cost of maintaining these bureaucracies and institutions ends up being financially inefficient and ends up being more expensive than if we were to just allocate resources in a more egalitarian fashion. Now, we'd still have to have people coming out and, distributing wealth and, talking about certain ways in which we could maybe maintain a central hub or something of that sort, or whatever economic system would be developed that would allow us to distribute goods and services in a way that was much more equitable and was based on need. But because of how much we already produce already in terms of food and other things, we could probably go into massive overproduction and get rid of scarcity in a lot of major necessities of life. We could certainly do that for housing. We could certainly do that for food. Most medicines are very cheap and efficient and easy to produce. Not saying that this wouldn't have any sort of rationing or that it wouldn't be completely perfect, but it would certainly be a better allocation of what we're doing than now, wasting so much money and resources. Welcome, King Cyrus. How are you doing this Sunday? Cray says we could be producing beyond the overproduction we've already involved in the use of the ability to directly care for people. Yes, absolutely. And that moves into the other direction, right? It's not just the financial gains. In this type of understanding, we would be able to go through and not just make things economically more efficient and better for more people, but in doing so, we've effectively improved quality of life. We need to think of economic power as a mode of political power. We need to oppose concentrations of wealth for the same reason we oppose concentrations of political power in dictatorships. Yeah, because if you have that level of control, you can essentially control people's lives. And Duke said, as well, there's clearly enough food for everyone. We could not at least just give everyone a food ration, like food stamps, but for everyone. I mean, something like that would be really fantastic, Duke. The idea of having not just like a Medicare for all in the future in a place like the United States, but a system of food stamps for all to make sure that people are able to get enough food and have it be sufficient in such a way that we're able to make sure people are fed, make sure that people get the necessities of life that they're going to need. And not just necessities of life in terms of survival, but necessities of life in terms of what makes up a society today. Because, there's a lot of more conservative types who have a tendency to try to play things like, oh, well, you have a refrigerator now. Most people in houses have refrigerators. Therefore, we're in a better system than we used to be. But that's not, who doesn't have that anymore? If you rent an apartment, that's part of the standard contract of a rental that you're going to have that. So it's easy for conservatives to kind of throw out these very fake scenarios that lose touch with the realities that we're in. So I'm talking that we should be able to provide things like internet service to people, because having that connection and communication is essential, especially in a pandemic world. There's a lot of things that are connected to modern society that are not strictly necessary for existing and living, but are necessary to be a functional member of the society. David says we can localize food production more to democratize its production and distribution and also create opportunities for meaningful livelihood. See, that's another factor that's really important in all this. Emma, hey, welcome. How are you this Sunday? One of the things that happens in our current economic system is also the fact that it's also this idea that when goods and services are purchased, something like, say, coal, for example, or any sort of material resource, you have cargo ships literally crossing the ocean with the same cargo going back and forth. You'll have situations where coal from a place like Pennsylvania is sold to places across into Europe, and then there's coal from, like, say, Europe that's bought by companies in the United States. And you literally have the same resource traveling on vessels going across the world past each other. This is the type of inefficiencies that we see in our current systems. And this is another layer of the economic cost that goes into how we are wasting our valuable resources. Because the usage of fuel to get the ships across the ocean to deliver the same thing that's already there is an absolute absurd waste of resources. So we have this system where the bureaucracies are inefficient, where we are misallocating resources and moving them back and forth. And as David pointed out at the beginning, by maintaining these systems, we are providing a damage to human life. We are literally costing people better opportunities for existence. And when we are looking at what these costs are, it's really just one where we need to start asking, is it worth it? And I think the answer, if you look at it in any way, shape, or form, is no, it's not. So the question becomes, well, how do we start instituting a society where we can better allocate these resources? Where we can focus on a people-first approach? And I think that's where anarchists, leftists, need to start focusing our mindsets on. How can we start taking these systems and start making them work for us? And making them allocate resources in a better, more efficient way? Even if we don't reach our ideal system overnight, because we're not going to overnight. Capital is still going to try to maintain its power structure. It's still going to try to maintain these systems because it does concentrate wealth in the hands of a certain few people. And to them, they benefit. They benefit by maintaining the status quo. Which is why you always have to question how it is and why it is that certain groups are advantaged in certain contexts and systems. MS says, Labour had a policy for nationalized broadband last election and were mocked for it. See, that's the thing. A nationalized broadband would not be hard to implement. And as a matter of fact, it really would be useful. In a economy where most people need to apply for a job online, where most resumes are submitted to online services, you need people to have access to the internet in order to get a job. Even in this current system, it makes sense for everyone to have access to the internet. And when we start talking about things like having internet for everybody, getting food to everybody, and having healthcare for everyone, the only way that I honestly see us reaching a point where we can start to subvert this and to get any sort of say and control in terms of these powers, because we're in conflict in the sense that the people who are in charge right now, who have the authoritarian reins on the economic side of society, the thing that they don't want is to lose that position and power. The system works for them, but it doesn't work for the majority of people. People have to be jobless because reasons. Yeah, exactly correct. Nationalized broadband would lower the general cost of people being able to participate in the economy, including job finding and the operations of small businesses. Exactly. Imagine if everyone had access to these resources during the pandemic. Well, you know what? That's the thing that was really overlooked in a lot of places, and it's why I felt it was really important when I covered the thing in New York that happened recently, where they're setting up an ISP in the Bronx that's co-op owned. And I think that's the direction we're going to need to go into as leftists. Even though we're not going to get our ideal perfect system right away, we can start slowly using things like that, having a co-op worker-owned broadband to start to democratize on some level the positions of what government should already be doing and providing. It's going to be able to create systems. Me saying solidarity at the end of that video was awesome. We need to have solidarity, correct? We need it. You know? The only way we're going to circumvent these systems is by taking some of that economic power. And by doing that, we will gain political powers. And we will gain the ability to start enacting change. So by establishing things like worker co-ops, by establishing things in this, idea of dual power, we will slowly start to be able to shift the political spectrum and power. And yes, as anarchists, our end goal should be to eliminate those systems. That said, if we don't start building infrastructure in its place, if we don't start building alternative models, then what else are we supposed to do? Solidarity is the air democracy breathes. Absolutely. I completely agree with you, David. Emma says free broadband would have been so helpful for poorer kids in getting their education when they couldn't go to school. That's one thing. And I think we can even expand beyond that. It's one of the things I found fascinating, whether you like AOC or not. One of the things that she set up in her district was a tutoring program where kids in her district were able to, during the pandemic, get access to professional tutors for all of their school subjects, in case they weren't getting, adequate schooling for any number of reasons. Namely, like, oh, I had to go to work, or my parents had to go to work, and I had to take care of a sibling, and I had to miss school because of that, or any number of other reasons. They could schedule once a week time with a tutor who would help them with their homework. And so, like, when you have something like that attached to a broadband system that's free for everyone, can you imagine that, being able to provide that level of education and that level of internet access to students during a pandemic or during any sort of economic crisis or any sort of crisis in general? People would not be in such a bad place. To be able to have everyone no longer have to deal with that extra burden that the monopolistic practices of ISPs tend to put on people. Okay, Duke. tutor, not Tudor. He just made it weird. Society is weird. The way that we're structuring things right now it is evident that the way we're structuring things right now is inefficient and outdated. Even if these models did work at one time, they're not working optimally now. We can imagine better systems, and we have the tools and resources to do it. In a time where scarcity was more of an issue, it is quite possible that we might have had to deal with more things. But even still, the idea of rationing historically does not necessitate a form of poverty. It just means that you don't get more luxury than anyone else. And I think that's something worth noting, because a lot of people hear ration and they freak out. But the US has done rations before. The US has absolutely done rations before. In World War II, a lot of people, especially from outside the US, might not know this little detail, but pennies were actually switched to be made of steel and instead of copper, because copper was required for military equipment. War rations were common. People were encouraged during that time to start growing what was known as victory gardens, where people would start to grow their own fruits and vegetables. And when you have these structures and systems at play, you basically have people working in what would be recognized as a somewhat socialistic mindset. Even if it's not socialism explicitly or the system that we want, it's this idea that for things that are scarce, you optimize it in a way that benefits the society the most and the most people possible. Even the distribution of the vaccine, in some cases, has been a method of rationing. Rationing does not have to spell poverty. As a matter of fact, it can be done in a way that is designed to destroy scarcity itself. It's just so you don't have another situation where, for example, a bunch of people run, like at the beginning of the pandemic, and start hoarding toilet paper, which ends up creating an artificial scarcity. Then some people have too much, and some people have none. Human beings don't require that much materially to live thriving lives. They really don't, at the end of the day. As a matter of fact, I think that we could pretty much establish a relatively luxurious life for most people on this planet, with a proper allocation of resources and a proper usage of people's time, and getting over the idea of having to one-to-one analyze everybody. Your scarcity is fake and your poverty is unnecessary. Yeah, it really is. And just like the way capitalism slowly over time replaced feudalism, there is going to be a necessity to try to create a different system. A lot of this is an argument for a UBI. And at this point, as jobs can become more automated, I say that we start welcoming it instead of fighting it. But we need to have a UBI in place before that. This is why the conversations about something like a $15 minimum wage are starting to become completely nonsensical. Oh, no, not the Yang style UBI. No. The UBI should be the social safety net, as far as I'm concerned. You know what also is something that I think is worth noting? If you had worker co-ops, even if we didn't completely abolish all of the ideas of money and markets or anything like that, if you just switched to a system where people had worker co-ops, one of the things that we need to consider is how it would not just affect the supply chain, but the demand side of things. Because one of the things that happens in capitalism, and I think this is something that goes underlooked, everyone has a demand for housing, right? Like, at the end of the day, there are certain things that we all have demand for. Housing, food. You know, it might not be a specific type of food that is absolutely in demand, but food as a generality is in demand. But if people don't have money to buy housing, to buy food, they cannot be factored into a demand curve. They cannot be factored into that aspect of demand because their demand is not able to actually be produced in the economy or dealt with in an economic way. What is the value of a home for someone who is homeless or for whatever reason desires or needs a home? It's incalculable. And because if they don't have it, they don't have life. They don't have the ability to even be part of a system or part of a society. So when you compare that to the value and demand of, say, a person who wants to buy their third place for rental, and we talk about housing markets going up in price, that's happening from an inelastic demand. That's coming from a desire to have something that is absolutely necessary for life. It is becoming scarce because other people have more of it and are limiting the supply. And artificially are ruining the supply. Because if you eliminate the supply side by having multiple people have multiple homes that are not being used, then, you know, the demand isn't going to change. It's really disgusting when you look at it economically, how it functions in terms of just the, you know, the way that the economy functions around an idea of housing, for example, or, you know, anything, electricity, internet, even in this day and age, I'd argue, food, any resource you need to survive, and water as well. Duke says, I've heard AOC make this argument with healthcare where you need medical care, there's no limit to what one is willing to pay. Absolutely. And it comes down to that old, you know, proverbial thing where if you are given the choice between starving or paying whatever price, you will have to pay whatever price. The housing crisis is one example of many of capitalism's counter-economical productivities. We have to reclaim the idea of the work ethic and point out that liberal and conservative politics are antagonistic to the work ethic. I actually kind of agree with you there, David. I think one of the things that we need to remember is that a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do, a lot of the revolution, as it were, is going to be boring. In the conventional sense of things. We're going to be the ones to make it fun, because we're going to turn it into a party. We're going to turn it into something worth celebrating, and we're going to have fun with it. But a lot of the work involved is going to be a little bit boring. It's going to be putting in the hard work in the initial stages and sowing the seeds of this flower that we're trying to grow. And some of that's not fun, We work hard. It's easy to invest money that you inherited from previous generations with the bank, with your bank friends who, your parents introduced to you as a kid. It's easy to do that. It's hard work to start everything from the ground up. You can't claim to value work ethic while you actively undermine the economic freedom of workers. Yeah, true. Because they're the ones actively doing the things that are building things anyway. Always have been. And again, that's why it's so fascinating that you have these ideas of co-ops coming together, of worker co-ops coming together and trying to create something like an ISP. Because like the situation I covered from New York, they're the ones who built the infrastructure for Time Warner Cable and Spectrum. They're the ones who built it, but they don't own it. They don't have access to it. They're not able to maintain it. Wealth makers should control the wealth they produce. Yeah. It needs to become normalized in that way. And that's one of the things we're going to really have to work towards. And these are really the costs of maintaining this system. People don't have homes. That's the cost. People don't have food. That's a cost. We don't, we have people who are idle doing jobs that don't really make sense. And even if they're doing, and I'm referring to people who do busy work as idling. And that's not their fault. That's just the way the system functions. But they're not doing the things that they could be doing, like to produce better things for the society. This bureaucratic accountability practice that doesn't really serve our cause and our needs are inefficient uses of resources. And so the question really becomes, how do we start shifting in that direction? And that's the thing that we're going to probably get better at as we start pushing in the direction of using technology mixed with the practice of worker co-ops and democratically running things. And I think over time, what you'll see with worker co-ops, what I'd hope to see with worker co-ops, instead of having the same type of power structure where a company is strictly trying to maximize profits, it's the maximization of the happiness of the workers. It is the maximization of, the maximizing rather of the communities that they live in, because they want to see their communities better off. And it'll also be the maximizing of each other's respective happiness and communities. Because we're going to start to realize over time with that, even if that is a stage that we go through, that the work that goes through one co-op ends up influencing and producing the necessities of another co-op. And so you're going to see this democratic shift where the whole society is going to collectively start to democratize not just single industries or single businesses, but the entire economy itself. What do we prioritize? What are our needs? And what needs to be allocated? How do we allocate it? That's how we're going to have to start moving in those directions, if you ask me. The left must present themselves as the guardians of the work ethic and economic freedom. Anybody who isn't trying to protect you from poverty is an enemy of your economic freedom. I completely agree. And the thing that's interesting about that attitude, David, is that the system of having a republic as a form of governance was the political equivalent in certain time periods, right? Like when we were switching from a monarchical structure, a monarchical feudal structure, into a more republic-based society based around capitalism. That shift over time put us in a place where the work ethic and economic freedom arguments were maintained. The republic is a government that gives you more freedom because there's more hands controlling it than the monarchy. And this was a shift that happened over time. And you had multiple systems, like patronage, for example, was a proto-capitalist system that existed, which ended up freeing more hands. You had a lot of systems in place where you started creating the dynamic of the, how do I put this? Where you started creating the system that would become capitalism, where you had the, well, three factors that I would really put into what I think constitute capitalism, which is the use of markets in such a way that workers have to rely on a boss for their survival and are alienated from their work. That's how I would best define capitalism in any sort of scenario. So you have the alienation factor, which says that I work for something and I don't get what I worked for back. You have the component that says, if I don't work, I will not survive. And in most cases, that is true in our current system. If I do not provide my labor for this, I will not survive. There's no way to make it on your own. There's no way to just get a plot of land, really, and survive and sustain yourself. We are too integrally connected. And so, therefore, you need to rely on wages. So the system forces you into it, and people who try to remove themselves from the system are not capable of it. And that's part of the issue of, capitalism. It's not just the idea that you can't, or that you are having your wages stolen. It's not just the issue that there are markets which are inefficient, but it's the idea that you are forced into it and that removal from the system is not a possibility. You must depend on wages. King Cyrus says Adam Smith's ideas about markets and stocks actually is based on how the Middle East scholars discussed merchants and the ethics of holding people's money. Could you elaborate on that, King Cyrus? I would actually love to hear more about that perspective. David says Bookchin criticized Marxism for believing that workers would produce a transformational consciousness in their struggle. but instead their lives of corporate work just made the workers internalize corporate hierarchy as a given part of how the world always has worked. Yeah, I definitely see that argument. That makes sense. Carl Barks is hungry. Oh no. Well, Carl Barks has food right there. Which historical context, Cray? King Cyrus says the golden age of Islam in these Muslims communities, people would use the concepts such as holdings, but instead of private individuals having that say in terms of shareholders, the shareholders were community. Really? Does Carl Barks get along with Chairman Meow? Carl Barks has to get along with Chairman Meow because Chairman Meow is a cat, and base cat rules reality. So, although Chairman Meow is not present here at the moment. King Cyrus, you're definitely going into an area of history that I am actually not familiar with, and you are making my brain work in wondrous ways. And I'm genuinely appreciative of that. Because there's always room to learn more about these things. Brain activated, indeed. I always love these conversations on the stream because we, whether I pick the topic and start it or whether you all introduce a topic to me, we always end up having these great conversations where we're extrapolating a lot of the issues within our current structures and systems. And I love the fact that you all have great ideas at how to try to solve it. We're not just sitting here trying to complain about everything and just be like, oh, well, everything's messed up. I mean, we're all not going to come up with the solutions ourselves, and we're all not going to be able to be, the change in and of itself. But the fact that we're trying, and we're trying to come up with alternative mindsets and perspectives is something I very much value from these streams and from this community. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This would not be possible without you all. Are we not just complaining? I may have misunderstood the point. That's funny, Cray. There's been a long tradition of Islam mandating structures of mediation between business and banks in the community. Meaning that those who were Muslims are held accountable, especially merchants, to said the people of the Muslim community. You were put to death over things modern folks in Wall Street do now. On some level, Well, thank you, Duke. On some level, that really makes sense, doesn't it? King Cyrus, like, the crime that they're committing against people and against, you know, human beings to do these type of acts, when we're literally talking about things like commodifying water on a futures exchange, when we're literally talking about a profit incentive that makes it such that if we have cures for things, like, and if we actually provide new antibiotics or new antibiotic research, that is not considered productive use of money, because it is much better to keep people addicted to the cures, or the treatments, rather, instead of creating cures. This is the type of reality that we live in. That's literally destroying lives. And there's a time where even the US government had some semblance of recognizing that. And I'm not putting, like, the blame on doctors for something like that. It's genuinely the people at the top, the executives. Because the problem is when you base your entire economy on a for-profit model, at the exclusion of the point of why we're supposed to be making wealth and, value in the first place, then you literally lose the entire conversation. You end up starting to meta the game instead of trying to, like, actually do something for people. Capitalism can really be likened to over-metaing a game to such a point that it actually loses its purpose. The money you're meant to hold is for the people, not to make more money of the money you're holding. Plus, they didn't believe in eternal debts till you died. That was considered evil. Well, that's a thing. That happens in a lot of the different historical societies. If you look at something like the Jubilee as well, like, eventually the debts had to be absolved. Please read my comment like Timmy Turner's dad saying Dinkelberg. Usury? Did that work, Craig? Did that make your day? Oh, thank you, merchants. I'm going to take a moment and plug my cast iron teapot. This is the magical pot in which I am able to have caffeine and thus my brain functions. I love that teapot. And I have a cast iron teacup to go with it. Tea is still one of those you stole it in the future, Cray, and one day I'm going to be very upset with you because this is my personal property, okay? Oh, playing some intense Rocket League so you can't talk much? That's real. Yeah, tea is one of those few things that I splurge on myself a little bit for. I tend to be very, very simple. I don't spend a lot on myself outside of the necessities of life, but tea? Yeah, I think it's healthy to have a few luxuries if you can afford it. Even if they're small ones. Nothing wrong with that. And calm as when no toothbrush. I was about to read them, David. Thank you for pointing me back to them. Even in early Western capitalism, usury and financial manipulators were very looked down upon culturally. James Madison would actually scold his son habitually for making his living through the stock exchange. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. We also have to remember that usury was illegal in a lot of places for a lot of history. Imperialism debt has its advantages. I think I know what you're saying with imperialism debt. Could you just elaborate so that we're on the same page? Finance, beyond its most basic functions, has historically been seen as immoral in most societies and times. True, Duke. The fact of the matter is that in most societies, the entire point was it was a way to manage resources in a scarce system. And I'm not denying that it doesn't have value on some level, right? Like, in a scarce system, a thing like markets can have a certain level of value. But once you've reached the kind of wealth that we're able to produce technologically, the level of value that we can produce, the amount of food that we're capable of producing, there's just no justification for it anymore. At this point, you're keeping accounts for what reason? The entire point of keeping accounts is to, and yeah, they've always been abused. Markets have always been abused. There's always been some people who have been in a certain class and have come into positions of power and authority through their positions. If you were able to buy more things, you could become a higher part of society. Like, that's always been true historically. But the idea of allocating resources using that made sense when things like food were maybe not scarcity free. But if you have the ability to produce enough food for the whole society, why do we need to create this idea of accountability? Just let people eat. The system no longer makes sense. It's no longer doing the function that it was supposed to do. And so the few things that may be scarce, you can just apply to people who need it the most. I don't think it's that complicated to figure it out. And if companies like Walmart and Amazon can handle their inventory and their economies using computers and technology and predicting models of behavior, then there's no reason why we can't switch to that in the allocation of our resources. And in fact, do it better. The very idea of usury was attacked because the mainstreaming of credit was historically necessary to keep markets growing to prevent capitalism from collapsing. Exactly, David. What I mean is that you forcing a conquered nation, especially Western imperialism of European type, to a country, they have to pay debt or else we invade you. Well, yeah, today I would say that it's less invade you and more we're going to sanction your entire country and ostracize you from the rest of the world where you don't even need to lift a finger. But yeah, that form of imperialism has its advantages to the imperial nation, for sure. The amount of wealth that is stolen through these means is immense. It's literally extortion at that point. Oh, your country is lacking resources because our colonial imperial system literally stripped you of resources And we've decided to create a structure in which you literally have to owe us money or pay us back money, or else you're not going to be able to have your basic necessities. So you do so, you sell your natural resources to companies in our countries. We take everything from you, and then functionally, you have to keep paying us more and more back. Or else we ostracize you and tell you that you don't have the ability to get food anymore, and we keep perpetuating this and stealing your resources. It's extortion. The modern expansion of debt to support the finance system has been described by Richard Wolff as capitalism being on life support. That's a fair analogy. If you know more about Wolff's perspective on that particular topic, I'd love to hear it. But in general, I think Wolff is someone worth examining and learning more from. I think any economist, anybody who's reached the level of a master's or a doctorate in economics who has a socialist leaning or bend is definitely someone worth listening to and talking about. Because generally speaking, they're going to be the people who are able to come up with a lot of the ideas that we're going to need to perpetuate and create. They're the ones who are going to be very good guides on the roadmap of what the future is going to look like and hold. Okay, yeah, definitely do. Let me know on the Discord, or we can have that conversation on the Discord. The use of debt in neocolonialism is economic terrorism. It's economic terrorism, and honestly, my brain went straight to this when I saw the eco part of economic terrorism. It's eco-terrorism as well. Because it's destroying entire ecosystems. It is absurd the level of damage that's being done in that regard. This is why when apologists try to claim, why attack European imperialism, why are we special, I have to explain to them, bruh, the Persian Empire didn't come to a people and say you lose your culture. No, and even the Roman Empire, to a certain extent, didn't try to steal culture. They just wanted to levy taxes. It was about exploiting the people as an underclass, but generally speaking, they let people maintain their cultures. That's never been a part of that form of empire building, historically. The way it's handled now is very different from how it was ever handled historically. And that's why, I generally maintain that one of the factors of imperialism is, and how we define imperialism, is the type of wealth extraction and in addition to the destructions of culture. I cannot see down here. Thank you, Staxel, with your lighting issues. Racism wasn't invented until far after the fall of Rome. I've seen folks claim colonialism wasn't all that bad. Look at the Greek colonies in ancient Egypt. And I'm like, dude, the Greeks asked ancient Egyptians if they could settle there. There's a certain truth to that. There is also a level where I'd argue that certain aspects of the Roman Empire and the way that they would insert governors and into other societies was a form of dominating and changing them. But it still wasn't the same type of attitude. Like, for example, Egypt still had the pharaoh system even when you had Romans effectively in the position as pharaoh. Like, it wasn't a complete subversion of the culture. There were syncretic aspects, and there were ways in which they did, change. And there is an aspect where they did change the culture, right? But it's not quite the same as what we would define in today's world. And it's hard to make the comparison between, like, what we would consider the ancient world and a lot of the systems that we look at now. They're just not functionally the same. The priorities were just very different. Move this forward. People who lived under Rome still had their sense of civilizationhood intact for the most part. The way I would define it, honestly, David, and what you're saying is absolutely correct. The way I would define it is that they basically ended up with a Roman version of their society as opposed to losing their society. There was a syncretic, version where they would take on a lot of the Roman customs. They would have access to Roman technologies. A lot of them would even become part of, like, Roman legions and stuff like that, the soldier class. But they would still maintain that sense of communal culture in society. That was part and parcel to that form of empire. Romans were the beginning of it, in my opinion. Achaemenid's Persian Empire were very interesting in my view. They had a very decentralized empire system. That's really it, Duke. They would replace the upper echelons of the society with Romans, which did change it over time. And I do agree with King Cyrus that the Romans were probably the start of what we would start to consider the mentality that would become imperialism. And there's an argument to be made that Rome doing what it did ended up influencing the rest of Europe to start to model itself after the Roman Caesar. Which is why you get the Tsar, why you get the Kaiser, why you get kings and monarchy coming out of that. So Rome started that process. But I agree with you, the Persian Empire was a very different, centralized version. But that doesn't mean Rome was the current system. And that's something worth noting. Rome was not the... Rome was the beginning of our process, but it was not our process, if that makes sense. And I think you're absolutely right that to mention that the Persian Empire did things so drastically different from the way Rome did. That's a good way of describing it. They had Roman institutions forced on them, the narratives conservatives have as Rome pushing, quote, Western values, shared by all European peoples, what is anti-historical. Don't get me started on that whole Western values thing, because that makes no sense. They decide to take Celtic traditions, Germanic traditions, Roman traditions, and Norse traditions, merge them into something called whiteness, and say that this is Western values. Ignoring the fact that all of the peoples that I just mentioned were not on the same page with each other. They had nothing to do with each other. They hated each other and they fought each other. That's not even factoring in the fact that Rome itself had a rich history that was tied to North Africa, had a rich history that was tied into moving towards the direction of the Persian Empire, that was tied to the history of Turkey and moving into what we would consider the Middle East today. And the way that Alexander started moving that in the direction, Alexander started moving into the direction of moving towards India and the defining of the Silk Road, and there's a complete ignoring of the history of the Silk Road and how it literally created modern Europe. How in a lot of ways, it was literally the Europeans learning from aspects of the Crusades, from learning from Islamic societies. In a lot of ways, the merchant republics that were Italy were a variant of what was already happening in what we would consider the Middle East and Arabia today. There's a reason Italy got that first. It's because they were really the closest European power to that Silk Road trade. And never mind the wealth and resources that were concentrated in Rome because of the Catholic Church. Alexander the Great, Hellenistic kingdoms, yeah, we forget he was the smartest guy to tell the Greeks to intermix with the Persians and end Greek xenophobia. Absolutely. And this is really the absurdity of this whole notion of what is Western. Because by all accounts, Western also has to include the Moors. Western also has to include all of the societies in North Africa if you're going to go by these types of definitions and understandings. And they're conveniently excluded because they don't make sense. But they make more sense than the Norse and Celts getting along. Like, how absurd is that? Like, the lengths that they have to go to justify positions of white supremacy. Caesar committed a genocide in Gaul as part of his conquest. 25% of the pre-Roman population was slaughtered, with another 25% becoming enslaved. Their culture was stomped out. True. And that's the other thing. There is more in common between Northern Mediterranean culture and Southern Mediterranean culture. The tip of the North African coast and the South European coast have more in common historically than the rest of Europe has with the southern part of Europe, right? There's a reason why part of Italy forming into a nation was an issue, because the idea of Sicily and southern Italy having such a close tie to North Africa made it a distinct culture from northern Italy. There was also the issue in Spain, where the southern parts of Spain had a history of Moorish rule, and it was very much distinctly different culturally than the northern parts of Spain. And I don't know enough about the history of France to talk in detail about it, but the history of southern France probably has the exact same type of history. And you can't define this based on whiteness. Centuries of separate Norman rule. Are you talking about France, Duke? Oh, for South Italy. Yeah. But we like to pretend that we can apply these modern definitions onto historical categories. It's something that's done all the time to justify our current system. But it makes no sense. But in the name of trying to create a narrative, to create a story, to justify their position, they end up, you know, creating this fiction of Western. And if there's any understanding of Western, honestly, you know, you even have to take into account that the idea of, what would be kind of like the Orient versus the Occident. And how even parts of Eastern Europe and parts of Russia, for example, would have been considered part of the Orient. Because it's literally a Eurocentric definition. France, it's the Franks and Vikings, Slavs, and other Germanic tribes. Also, morons forget these tribes didn't call Germany Germany. The Romans used German. That was the name they gave it. True, because in a lot of ways, Prussia was one of the main... the Prussians were one of the main groups. People forget that the Holy Roman Empire was made up of a lot of different groups of people. Why is Europe a separate continent? It's not historically. Eurasia was considered its own continent. Africa is considered, in some instances, Africa is considered part of one landmass, historically, with Eurasia. Because they were technically connected before the Suez Canal. Though Africa was connected by such a small, region that it was justifiable to call it a different continent, but Eurasia was usually considered one continent. There's always that stereotype, Duke, that Russia is... that Russia is not really European. People also forget that there were Sino-Russian wars, historically. That was a thing that happened. Russia had wars with China and Korea and Japan. There was a huge history with that as well. But we all focus on the European side. We all focus on the, Moscow side. But there was a lot going on the other side. In fact, by some accounts, there may have even been, exchanges into the Pacific Islands by Russian explorers at one point, if my memory is serving me correctly. Latin Americans are from the Western Hemisphere but are considered culturally Western. because the narrative of Western civilization is defined as a hagiography of whiteness. Russia didn't have any history until the communists. The Mongols, why would we remember them? One of the largest empires in the history of the world. Possibly the largest, actually, now that I think about it. They did what no other empire could, and what's that, Gray? I'm actually curious if they were the largest. I'm trying to remember if... Well, the British Empire technically is the... Yeah. Everyone assumes it's the British Empire. Largest empire in history. I'm just trying... Yeah, it was the Mongol Empire. In 1279. Hold on, I wanna see if I can pull this map up and show it off. Okay, apparently the British Empire did outclass the Mongol Empire in terms of size. The Mongol Empire covered 9.15 million square miles of land. The British Empire covered 13 million square miles. But it's also a very different form. You're counting Antarctica as part of the British Empire. The parts of Antarctica that they had. That's not very fair. Let me do this. Let me pull this out and pull this over here. And screen. That's the size of the Mongol Empire in 1279. Yeah, Duke got it. It's the largest connected area. Well, you know what, Duke? The funny thing is when you start talking about resources and you start talking about alternative methods of how to deal with them, and you start talking about the history of feudalism, you start to have conversations about kings and monarchies and the connection to them, and then sometimes you start talking about Rome, and that leads you to conversations about empires. Because that's how history works. And having an extensive knowledge of all of these histories and being able to converse with other people who can bring different pieces of the puzzle to that ends up creating a understanding that's going to help bring us to a better world. Because it's only by having these conversations that we're going to be able to grow and learn. And you know what? If we're wrong when we make mistakes, we have conversations about it and we learn from each other, and that's the point of having an education and learning from each other. Like, that's the point of it. We grow, we come up with better understandings, better models, better discussions, and then we move in the direction of trying to implement things that work for us into different societies. let me catch up with you. And let me reload Staxel back in. There we go. The Mongols had all the rich parts of the world. Europe was a backwater, and Africa was fairly autarkic. What is that word? I actually don't know that word, Duke. British Empire had a more negative impact, in my opinion, because of imperialism. Thanks to them, we got white man's bird in South Africa, Rhodesia, white supremacy. Oh yeah. I'm not familiar with that word. What do you think people often get wrong about the Byzantines and East Romans? Could you be more specific? The question was vague deliberately. Yeah, I genuinely don't know how to answer that. I honestly feel like a lot of people in what we would define as the West don't really know much about the Byzantine Empire. I feel like it's one of those things that is kind of glossed over. Just like I think the Orthodox Church, for example, and its role in history is kind of glossed over a lot. We focus on the Catholic Church, we focus on the Protestant Reformation, which historically was a pretty cool thing, even though Protestantism has had its complications and problems. But the idea of, like, the Eastern Romans, the Eastern Roman Empire, that whole concept, and how it eventually, morphed into a lot of what we consider Orthodox Christianity today, people just kind of forget that in the West. It's kind of pushed the periphery. I guess my answer to that would be, ultimately, them not remembering it would be the greatest, how did you phrase it exactly? I think that's the greatest thing they get wrong about the Byzantines, is that they forget its power and it existing. Because it's inconvenient, actually, for a lot of narratives. When you say continuous, do you mean their royal family was continuous or something else? I think what we're trying to say here is, with the Mongols was specifically that they have the largest connected land. The British Empire was disjointed. The British Empire had land in, parts of Africa, parts of South America, Canada, Australia, South Africa for sure. Enjoy your pool game, Cray. But the Mongol Empire was like one huge piece of land. You as well, Cray. People don't think of them as being Roman, but they very much were. They call themselves Roman, the Roman Empire. We added the adjective for propaganda reasons. Zero, welcome. Oh, you're talking about the Byzantines and their status as a continuation of Rome. My apologies, David. I thought you were talking about the Mongol thing. Even down to the fascist party of the Golden Dawn made it seem like as if the Byzantines didn't exist in their nationalist narrative. Golden Dawn loved bringing up the Spartans and Alexander the Great. Yeah, and the funny thing is they also forget that Alexander the Great was Macedonian and not, you know, strictly Greek. Today on Historian Terra. Yeah, well, history was my field, so kind of glad to be able to be using it, you know? Feels good, actually. Even though they ignore Alexander the Great supporting intermixing of the Greek people with other people. Yeah. And never mind the fact that there's some evidence to point to the fact that Alexander the Great may not have been entirely straight, but, you know, let's ignore that part of the history because we need to pursue a certain narrative. It's just the Spartans in Athens, yeah. Was anybody ever that great, Zero? That's the question we need to ask. That's the hard question. Alexander the kinda True. He was alright. Alexander the alright. Oh god, that sounds terrifying. That's way too close to alt-right. Chad the mediocre. I think we spend too much time trying to be great at everything that we do. Maybe we can just settle for mediocrity sometimes. There is so much space in here, and I don't even know what to do with it all. I'm too busy forgetting how great I am to start trying it all. That's funny. Wait, why am I not getting a cloud back from that? Did the game make it where you can't get cloud blocks anymore? Duke is... Enjoy your time, Duke. Thank you for coming out. As usual, it was lovely having you here. King Cyrus says, I was watching a doc about people of color who knew and read Old English, and he was trolling racist Brits about being English, calling into his show, and it's funny, they can't even speak Old English. True. That's hilarious. If you can't speak every Proto-Germanic language, then you're not truly, you know, truly Western. I was considering trying to see if it would make any sort of sense to use this to, like, make it look like the sails have been unfurled. They totally made it so you can't. I'm not sure I'm keeping this, but let's find out. Potentially. If it was a small enough design, yeah. I just want to see what this would look like as, like, an unfurled sail. He was literally having the convo in Old English with a guy who claimed on the phone he was purebred Anglo-Saxon And he said hello in Old English, and he was like, speak English, you immigrant. Oh my god, that's funny. It's like, I am speaking English. You're not. You're speaking pseudo-French. What I'm thinking is I could do this here. And then does that make it look like it's an unfurled sail? That might be overkill. Do we like this? For the sail to be a little unfurled? I kind of wish I could get like a cream colored block, like this old color, like old looking color, instead of the pure white. That guy spoke the road, and that namby-pamby new stuff. Merchants, you like the asymmetry? Emma, I appreciate you coming out. Thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Let me see what this, that's funny. see. Zara says I'm visiting my mom and she keeps simultaneously trying to feed me and tell me not to eat so much. That sounds so normal. And relatable. What do? That's a good question. There's no good answer. You lose either way. I kind of really like that sail. If anything, I kind of wish I had just made it larger a little bit. So I think it's actually a bit small. Kobayashi Maru. Hmm? True. Star Trek nerds. Star Trek nerds will understand. That's what I'm thinking. If the sail came down lower instead, it would be kind of nice. Three, 4, 5, 6. And I will break this. I could just do that. There we go. How much do I know about the inner workings of the relationship between the Byzantine Empire and Senate? I know nothing about the inner workings of the Byzantine Empire and Senate. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I still don't know anything about the Emperor and the Senate. I said Empire, and I read your word correctly in my brain, but then read it out loud wrong. Actually, I really like that sail. That's awesome. I think it'd be worth making a full set of sails like that. I just wish I could like furl it on this like have it like curled on the side a little bit more instead of like that. I'm actually curious about trying something like this again. To see how that looks like from a distance. To see if that looks completely ridiculous. Up close, that looks absolutely ridiculous, but from a distance, it actually looks pretty nice to me. Let me pop it on the other side and see what it looks like. Hmm. What do you all think? Do you think the end's on there or no? Yeah, I kind of like the ends too. Well, I think I found an effective strategy for making sails. So that's cool. Oh yeah, that looks amazing. You said you liked it before I put on the sides? My issue was that it looked a little too squared and too flat before. I feel like the thing makes it like have this like pop out feature. I don't know. Like it feels like it pops out a little bit more. Also, is that one casting a shadow on that one? That's cool. Excuse me. I should put a crow's nest on one of these too. I'll sort that out next time. Let's pet all the animals. I think I might wrap up a little early today and just call it. I'm a little tired today. Can finish up on the ship next time and try to see if we can make friends with a couple of the other people that we haven't in the game at this point. So I had a great time as well, David. This was a lovely conversation. As usual, you all make this stream happen, you know? And I genuinely appreciate it. These conversations, as long as we keep pushing them forward, we keep talking about different ways to imagine the world, we're gonna create something different. So I want to thank you all, and if you liked what you saw, you know, feel free to please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Is there a Discord schedule? What do you mean, David? If you're someone new seeing this for the first time, hit the subscribe button, bell for notifications. You can also follow me on Twitter, check out my Discord, which is a lovely community, and we'd love to have you there. Also, if you are in a place where you feel financially secure enough to do so, please consider giving me a single donation or a Patreon donation. Those links are also in the description down below. My name is Anarchist Tara. and I thank you so much for watching. Do we all meet to chat there at certain times? No, David, the Discord, we just kind of come in and chat whenever. I'm always popping in and out. Everyone's popping in and out. It's great about that. There's not like specific times except for the events that we have. So bye everyone. Thank you again, and I will see you next Sunday at the same time. And I hope you all have a lovely week.